because I haven't been to Detroit since I was a little kid, man. Like, it's been a long time. I got a lot of family here, so it's crazy that it's taken, you know, this long for me to come back. And this is my first show in Detroit, so I'm looking forward to having a great time, man. Yeah, same for Marcus. This is Marcus D's first time to Detroit. So, you know what I mean? Like, you know, we definitely looking forward to rocking for y'all, and this definitely will not be our last time. This is a beautiful spot y'all got too, man. Like, the second I walked in, I'm like, this is amazing. You know what I mean?
Hey, yo, thank you, my brother. My name is DJ Sakari, owner of 5E Gallery. Peace. And peace, Marcus D. Thank y'all for coming, man. I'm a fan, Substantial. I'm a fan, my brother. So I just want to welcome y'all. This is your first show. I want to officially welcome you to the space myself.
Thank you, man. Thank you. So yeah, so when they asked me to do the event, when we were building with Thomas about doing the event, one of the things he asked if I'd be willing to do is kind of share some of the experiences from working with Nujabes, or Jun, as I call him. So yeah, man, so any questions you guys may have, you know what I mean? Like, I could just kind of just start talking, but I don't want to drag it out and bore you, you know what I mean? So I'll give you the condensed version of kind of how we linked up. You know, the question I always get asked is how did, like, things happen with Japan? Like, how did my stuff become more popular in Japan? And so basically, what happened was while I was in college, I was attending Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York, and there was a brother named Tomo, whose rap name is Sphere of Influence. And so at the time, his older brother, a rapper by the name of Zebra, was like the #1 rapper in Japan. And so he was an up-and-coming MC, you know, underground MC, making a name for himself before he was later signed to Def Jam Records. At the time when he was on the come-up, he was actually interning for Nujabes. He worked at Nujabes' store in Tokyo, in Shibuya, Tokyo, called Guinness Records. And so while we were in school together, keep in mind too, at the time, most people did not know who Nujabes was, including myself. And this is pre-Samurai Champloo and every other thing that might have helped you discover his music. And so what happened was we were working on like a mixtape with a guy who goes by the name of Bisc One now. I forget what label he's with, but he used to go by DJ Biscuit. And basically, he did a mixtape that me, Pac FM, Invincible, who's actually, you know, repping y'all area, Invincible was on there as well. This mixtape went with Tomo back to Japan. So one day he's at the record shop, he's at Guinness Records, and Nujabes asked me, he's like, man, you know of any tight MCs in New York right now? I'm looking for some people to work with. He was like, you got anybody you recommend? He said, man, you better hear my man Stan nice. I was like, oh man. So he ended up playing the mixtape. He played a little, I think it was like a freestyle that I did on there and stuff. And like where I went over like 2 beats. One was, I can't remember, man. If I find that stuff, I'm gonna just post it online just because. But yeah, man, so he played the joint for him. Jun liked it, was interested. So the funny thing that happened was he gave Jun my number. He didn't contact me to tell me that someone would be contacting me about working with me. So when I get the call, I used to work at, for Pratt Institute, had like landscaping jobs. So man, like I come home, I don't want you calling me. I don't want to talk to anybody. I've been in the sun for like 9 hours. I'm tired, B, you know what I mean? So I come home, I come to my crib, I sit down, phone rings. I pick up the phone, I'm like, hello? And I hear this thick accent. So this is my Nujabes. This is me imitating Nujabes. Hello, can I speak to Stan, please? Now, I need you to know that my friends, all of my friends are comedians. He can testify to this. Marcus knows I hang with a lot of clowns, you know what I mean? I hadn't met Marcus at the time. So, but a lot of my friends are funny dudes, and they do great impressions. I almost hung up on Nujabes. I promise you. He was about to get hung up on. When I heard the voice, I know my friends are clowns. I'm like, real funny. You calling from Japan, and you want to sign me to a record deal. You know, I was about to hang up on him, but he said, no, seriously. My name is Jun, and I go by Nujabes. I'm like, I don't know what a Nujabes is. That's a very elaborate name to be pretend, so you have to be real. and then basically, he told me what he did and what he had in mind, and he was like, yo, I really like what I heard. If you could send me some more of your music, I would love to check it out. And man, if it's, if it's anything, if this is good as what I heard, I'd like to, work with you some more. I'll send you some production. Maybe we can work something out. So I was intrigued. I'm like, man, look, Japan. I've been thinking about Japan since I was like second grade. I can remember the moment I wanted to go to Japan, you know what I mean? So I was very intrigued, and and it was a little more difficult to kind of research people online, so I just kind of had to take a leap of faith. So at the time, Lord, this is a very important part of the story too, I was working on a demo, and I was actually in talks with people from Def Jam Records. I was actually in talks with people about a major label deal, which has happened multiple times in my career where I've had the opportunity to go mainstream. And so I was talking to DJ Enough, who happened to be cousins with a friend of mine in college, who, when he said the thing, I thought he was bullshit too. I was like, hey, come on, man, they ain't your cousin, man. Lying and shit, people be lying, And he proved me wrong. He was like, no, I'm calling on the phone right now. And I knew the voice instantly, like, yep, that would be enough. And so anyway, the demo I was working on was for me to submit to Def Jam because they wanted to hear my stuff. And I had a bunch of stuff already, but it was very dated. You know what I mean? Like, it was like at least 3 years old for me, and that was dated enough. And I wanted to give them my best work. So I went in the studio, worked on all this new stuff. By the time I submitted it to Def Jam, which was maybe a week before Janet called me, I got the word from Enough that I was too late. He was like, yo, you took too long to get it to me, because it took like over a month for me to get him the new material. And he was like, yo, you kind of missed your window. And they just signed Lady Luck. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, we all know how that worked out. So, yeah. And so, hey, I ain't saying, I ain't throwing shots. I'm just saying. When's the last time you heard anything? I'm just saying, right. So, yeah. So it ended up happening. I took that same material I was going to submit to them, and I submitted it to Johnny. And I sent it to him on a cassette, not a CD, on a cassette. That's how long ago this was, okay? And man, he got back to me as quick as one could at that time, because everything was very slow. And he was like, I love what I heard. I'm about to send you a cassette of beats. So I literally still have a lot of those cassettes and some of those little mini discs with like beats that he submitted to me or whatever to work on the first album. And so then I proceeded to write. We actually did 25 songs for the first record. So before I flew out to Japan, I had to send him lyrics so he could actually kind of review what I was writing about. And he really, one of the reasons why we connected is because he really appreciated what my subject matter. You know what I mean? Like, with a name like Substantial, you kind of can't talk about bullshit. At least not all the time. Makes it real hard to do, like, twerk records. So, yeah, right. And so you guys familiar with Verbal from M-Flow? Anybody know? Okay, so that's also, you probably also know him as L Universe. So he is the one who, when Jun received my lyrics, actually read my lyrics to Jun, or would help kind of go over and explain things to Jun so he could better understand exactly what I was talking about. So he stamped me from the beginning as well. And when I got out there, we recorded 25 songs in a month. I flew out there for a month. We were in the studio on average 8 to 10 hours a day, maybe 5 days a week, sometimes 4. And some days we do 12-hour sessions, you know what I mean? And we just work hard, eat good, and repeat cycle, you know what I mean? So yeah, so that was pretty much how I got started. That was 99 when he first contacted me, 2000 when I signed the contract with him. First single came out, which was Lyrical Terrorist with L Universe, better known as Verbal. And for those of you who don't know Verbal or L Universe, he's actually he's like a pop star in Japan. You know what I mean? Like, he's not like, said just random underground rapper. Like, this dude's like big, like he's really big out there. So like, I remember bringing him and Sphere of Influence on stage at a show, and like it took like 5 minutes to wait for girls to stop screaming so we could actually perform one of our songs together. Sky. And I need you to know that in Japan, to see that doesn't happen often. Like, you don't see that level of hysteria with adults, at least. Maybe young girls, but not adults. Like, there was adults wearing 21 and over clothing. You know, so yeah, it was pretty crazy. But yeah, so that's kind of how it all started. You know what I mean? A lot more happened after that, but I guess I'll take some of your questions, and then we can go from there. Yes?
Can you talk about like what the studio process was with you guys, like what you guys were doing?
Sure. So this was before he saw, like, I mean, he was already pretty successful in terms of operating his own business. The area that he lived in Shibuya was actually, it was a really nice, one of those like really nice apartments where you got to get buzzed in, say hi to the door person. You know, he was doing all right for himself when I first met him. So I was like, man, this is nice. This is real nice. Can I touch that? That is nice. You know what I'm saying? So when I got there, I mean, it was basically, when we first started working, he had one apartment in the building that he lived in and actually recorded in. And so we recorded in the living room space where he had his computer desk set up. He was using a Mac. I forget, I want to say he was using Logic at the time. Because I know he was using Mac or whatever. It wasn't Cubase. He was definitely using Logic. And so, you know, a lot of his process, I didn't really see him, from time to time you see him on the keyboard, but most of the time, you know, he's like importing his sounds and everything through the computer, working that way. And but he liked a specific sound. So it was kind of like, you know, I came from an era where like I couldn't afford a lot of what he was using, you know what I mean? And so I was using little, actually, for those of you who follow me on Instagram, you probably saw like this old school sampler I posted. It's a Gemini sampler with like 6 banks or something like that, 5 or 6 banks. I was using that and like a little 3-channel Gemini mixer with that, recording on like 2 different tape decks. It was crap. It was crap. The funny thing is now, a lot of successful producers now produce stuff that sounds like it was made with that stuff. But like similar to Jen, they had a high-tech setup, you know what I mean? So like, I come from an era where it was very difficult to craft your stuff. You know, like it was definitely a different experience for me seeing somebody work like that. And so we come in and it was like no booth. The microphone be set up like in the middle of the living room, not that far from the kitchen. And but it was like, it sounds like it was a low budget setup, but the stuff he was using was high quality. So when I first got there, we recorded like 2 or 3 songs, and he was excited immediately. Like the first song we ever recorded together was Substance, which is the second track on my first album, To This Union, The Sun Is Born. And he was just, you know, him and DJ Dexstream, who at the time went by Mona Risick, were very excited, but he wasn't completely happy with the mic that we were using. So in the middle of the session, he just stops me like, wait, something's maybe not right. Maybe we should go, yes, we should go to the store. And so we went to the shop, just stopped mid-session, and then we just went to we went to like, whatever, you know, their version of Guitar Center, you know what I mean? And like went mic shopping, just in the middle of the session, like, no, I don't like how this sounds, let's go fix it. And he bought this massive mic that was like, yeah, it just looks like if we were having like a, you know, if it was a zombie revolution or something, I mean, you know, like whatever, like a little zombie apocalypse happening, that would be your massive canteen, you know what I mean? That's what the mic looked like, man. I probably got a picture of one of our sessions with this huge microphone that looked like a light with like a foam thing over top of it, you know what I mean? It looked like one of those, you know, it's so big. Pause.
Hey,
but yeah.
real quick, so can I ask you a question really quick?
Yes.
I have a good friend here. His name is DJ Mr. B. He's from France.
Hey.
And he drove over. He's got to go and do. He has another gig he has to do. But he came by just to say what up and say peace real quick because he heard you were here and Nujabes was here. This is Chris, Mr. B from France. And he had a question about. He said you did a song with Eric Lau.
Yeah.
What was the name of that song?
The song is called Resilient.
Resilient.
Yeah,
okay.
It's on my album, Home is Where the Art Is. Yes, my latest solo album, yes. Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, man.
So we salute that.
brother.
We salute that, my brother.
Yeah, Eric Lau is amazing. Like he's really, really talented, man. Like if you're not familiar with Eric Lyle's stuff, you should definitely look him up. Talented dude.
Thank you for letting me interrupt you.
Hey, no problem. Peace, man. Have a great gig tonight, man. All right. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
How would he like groove out to music? How was like, when he closed that, like when he was really into a track, what was his reaction,
A lot of times, man, we're sitting around in his place and he would go through records. He had a crazy record collection. I mean, obviously, it kind of wasn't fair. He owned a record store. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like I look at my little humble ass collection at the crib, and it's like I can't compete with someone who owns a record store. Like, shit ain't fair. You know what I'm saying? And so anyway, yeah, man. So like he had the apartment he was in. Actually had like multiple. I think it had like at least 2 rooms, and one of the rooms was solely for his records, like solely for his records. So let's say I want to say that things probably stood about this high, and it was maybe from there to almost the screen, and like literally filled this entire room. It was not a small room, you know what I mean? Like because later on, the store manager actually lived in that apartment and actually had a bed in the exact same room. You know what I mean? Like, so it was a big room, and I'm talking about like at least 4 rows of these things, nothing but records. And meanwhile, he still has records in the studio area. You know what I mean? So a lot of times what would happen, be hanging out at this place or whatever, cracking jokes or talking about whatever, and then in the middle of a conversation, he'd just go grab a record, just throw a record on. I think at the time, D'Angelo's second album came out, Voodoo came out. And so we were vibing to that a lot, and just, and we had different tastes, man. Like, like there were certain things that we both appreciated, but like we would debate about like what was our favorite song on that record that just came out at the time. And so, and then he'd throw that on, we vibe out for a couple minutes, and then he'd throw on something a little older when he was looking for samples. And I just remember moments where like he'd find something that he knew we could use, and he'd play it. Tell me, like he has a little smirk on his face because he knows I'm gonna like it. Tell me what you think of this one. Puts it on. The little sample come on, I'm just like, shit, whoa! Like, one of those moments where the sample is so damn good, like he can do nothing to it, and we got a winner, And it's funny, the track, the story I'm talking about in particular is actually a track that never came out. Like it was, I've tweeted about it or mentioned it on Facebook before, saying that like I found this track that we did that was easily the hardest, like it's the hardest song that he's probably ever produced. Me heard that joint, the Pigs joint. Would you say the same thing? Like, yeah, like. It's when you hear it, you're not going to think it's Nujabes because the beat is so like it's hard, like really hard. Like you makes you want to throw like someone out a window, like shit. You know what I mean? Like it's super hard. Like this shit is really hard. And the song is about just dealing with being tired of crooked cops. You know what I mean? The song's called Pigs. And so and what happened was after we finished recording the song, like his building. I mean I was so loud when we were recording the song, one of the people who were on the way to the studio could literally hear me from the moment it came out the elevator. And like he was like at least 10 doors down, not 10 doors, maybe like 6 or 7 doors away from the elevator. And they'd hear me coming on the floor, like the second they came out the elevator onto the floor, they could hear us recording. And so, yeah, like it was a pretty badass track. And unfortunately, we never put it out because he lost the files. Like, I want to say a week after we recorded the track, his stuff crashed and we lost like the entire session. And so, yeah, so like maybe in the last few years, I just found that MP3. You know what I mean? Like, we have at least 13 or 14 songs that never saw the light of day. So we got an album worth of stuff that never came out. You know what I mean? So people always ask me if I'm gonna put it out, but there's a part of me that if I got approval from his family, I would, but then there's another part of me that says that like, even if I did, I probably still wouldn't, because I know that we cut those songs, which means that both of us agreed that it wasn't the best that we could do. And so it's one of those things, do you put it out and capitalize on it anyway, knowing that it's not your best effort? you know what I mean? And you just get the money off of it and everybody's going crazy because it's Nujabes. Or you just, you know, you just kind of take a step back and be like, you know what? Like, so like, you know, this man, like, God forbid something ever happened to me, he's probably one of the only people that has a copy of it. And that's because he's my good friend and I know he's not going to do that, you know what I mean? So, but like, I figure I share that with him because, you know, Nujabes was a huge inspiration to him. So we share a lot of, you know, he hears a lot of these stories as well, you know what I mean? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was actually just curious, what was his personality like, and what was your chemistry like in the studio?
Yeah, so all right, so to keep it, like as we always say, to keep it 100 and keep it 100 with you, we got along much better when we weren't working on music. You know what I mean? Like I preferred like, you know, and this is gonna sound weird, but I preferred Jun over Nujabes. You know what I mean? Like when it was just me and Jun, you know, so here you go. I'm a man, look, I need a chair. Look, get us a chair. We're still in chairs. Because me and Marcus is standing here, I need to get comfortable so I can just really, I'm gonna say some stuff, y'all gonna judge me. So this is a real story, okay? So this is to let you know what type of conversations me and this man would have. So we talk about women sometimes, you know what I mean? Of course, we're guys, we talk about women. So he asked me after being there for like a week or two, so, Stan, what do you think, how do you feel about Japanese women? And I was like, man, yo, they're beautiful, they're very pretty, you know, very pretty. And he's like, so you seen any that interest you? You know, like he's still like crying a little bit because I got like a studio apartment in Tokyo by myself, you know, so he wants to know like what's going on over at Stan's place. You know what I'm saying? And I'm chilling for the most part, you know, so like, I tell him, and I really said this, I was like, I think they're very beautiful. However, you know, I was like, you know, I'm a black guy, obviously. He's like, yeah. I was like, which means, you know, I was like, here's a metaphor for you. I was like, you know, here you go. What's those, what are the cars? Hot Wheels, right? I was like, so you got Hot Wheels, right? I was like, you see the little cars and they're awesome, they're fat. Look at them, sexy, I like that. Slow down, I like that. But then, me, I'm a big kid, you know what I mean? You know, Hot Wheels are cool, but I'm a Tonka Toys kind of guy. You know what I'm saying? and so yo, this is a real conversation. So when I make this comparison, he doesn't get it, right? He doesn't get it. And so I'm like, damn it, man, how do I just come out and say it without just sounding like a complete heathen? And so at the time, there was a site, I'm sorry in advance, ladies, I'm sorry. There was this website called blackexoticdancers.com. And I was like, I think he just needs a visual. I think he needs to understand what I'm saying. So he clicks on, I tell him to go to this website, he clicks on the link. Yeah, okay. So he goes to the website, and then like, and you know, got the little, you know, 18 and this, that, and the third. So when he gets there, I'm like, all right, wait for a second before you start looking. Because I have, you know, everybody has their favorites. Clearly, I've been on the site a few times. So, and I went to my favorite. I was like, man, whoa, this woman's banging. So I clicked on her link, and I was like, all right. I was like, so remember when I said about Tonka Toys? I was like, take a look at that. He saw it. Man, And I want to say, I'm like, now, you find me a Japanese woman around here that makes you make that same face, introduce me. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, I was like, so that's, I mean, stuff like that, man, we had a lot of great laughs. You know what I mean? Like, we both loved the movie Memento when it came out, and so we used to talk about that all the time. And one of the jokes he would always make after we saw the movie was if I forgot something, like if I forgot what time the studio session was supposed to start, I forget my verse or something like that. He said, "Oh, Stan, I think you got Memento." That was like the running joke. The running joke for like a good, the whole time I was out there, that second time I came out, that was the running joke. I think you got Memento every time I forgot something. And so like when I think of him, I like honestly, more than the music, I think about that stuff. You know what I mean? Because when I think about us working on music and the fans hit me up all the time, like, I wish you guys had more stuff. And the reality of it is, honestly, you know, and I've told a couple fans this when they've asked me, like, he was probably the hardest person that I've ever worked with. And it was because of the fact that we both had very different views on like the process, you know what I mean? Like, you know, even though he spoke English, there's the language barrier too, you know, like, so he could hear certain things, but if I'm doing like certain flows, like rapid fire delivery, he's not catching everything unless he reads it. And so sometimes when I remember when we did the song Remembering Dave, this was one of the biggest arguments we had, he wanted me to deliver it more like I delivered some of my other material. And I was trying to explain to him, I was like, it's a song about a friend of mine who passed away. So I'm not going to deliver it like a battle verse, you know what I mean? I'm not Cannabis. You know, Cannabis kind of locks in. It's like, I love you, mama, de mama, de mama, de mama, de. I was like, wait a minute, it's a song about your mom. You talk to mom like that? You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like my voice lightens up a little bit when I talk to my mama, you know what I mean? So I try to put that in my music. I don't deliver my stuff the same way all the time. And for you guys who call yourself fans, if you hear my stuff and you're like, yo, yeah, Substantial kind of do it like this all the time, that means you don't listen to everything I do. So trust me, like, if you, hey, thank you. Right, yeah, and it's funny. So songs like Banana, right? So songs like Bananas, you know, that is more of what I was known for before I got with Nujabes. I actually came up as a battle MC. So, you know, part of how I made a name for myself in New York, and part of what Jun used to market me in Japan was the fact that like I was a battle tested MC. Like it was in the little marketing posters and how I won certain tournaments and things like that. But the record literally had like maybe 3 battle records on it. The whole album had 3 battle records, while the rest of it was mostly stuff, me talking about my experiences and my family and things like that. You know, so, but yeah, so, you know, it was and that's ultimately why when we started work on my second album, why we ended up deciding to go separate ways in terms of me doing full records with him. We continued to collaborate, but I just felt like the process, one of the things I said to him as well when we finished the first record, because we were disagreeing on a lot of things, I was like, we should market this as Substantial and Nujabes, not Substantial. And the reason for that was because of the fact that he had so much input, you know what I mean? Like he wanted things a very specific way. And I told him, I was like, I have no problem with budging on certain things, you know what I mean? Like, but it needs to be marketed as this, not Substantial solo record. If I'm gonna sacrifice this, sacrifice that, not do this, not have anybody that I've been working with for 10 years before meeting you on my debut album, not having any producer I've been working with for over 10 years on my debut album, like, those are major sacrifices. You see what I'm saying? Like I had a full crew back in New York and Maryland, and none of them are on my first solo record. None of them. You know what I mean? So those are major sacrifices. And so like, you know, he wasn't, because he liked playing the background, hence the name Hideout Productions. You know what I mean? He kind of liked the idea of being low key. He didn't want to go that route. You know what I mean? So I respected that, but I knew going in to the second record that if we weren't able to do that, I was probably going to need to do my own thing. And so, you know, yeah, so that's kind of what what some of the experiences were like. You know, it wasn't always difficult though. Some sessions we go in there, knock it out real quick. Like we knock out 3-4 songs sometimes. Other times we work on one song for a full 8-9 hours because 2 or 3 hours were spent arguing over the direction of the song. Like, dude, like, you know, like we just weren't agreeing, you know what I mean? So it was cool. And that's part of the reason why Lyrical Terrorist actually was the first single, but it wasn't on my album, because one of the compromises one of the things we had to compromise on, I told him, I was like, if nobody that I started with, who I still make music with, is gonna be on my debut album, then I can't have a guy who I just met, who, although he's really cool and extremely popular, and it probably would have generated lots of sales. You know what I mean? Like it would have been great for my career. I know that. But I was like, I can't put this guy who I just met on my record and not have any of the dudes I started with, who I still rhyme with, on my record. You know what I mean? So So, you know, that was a tough pill for him to swallow. So we had our little back and forth, but I think, you know, like, I hear you, dog, I do, but, you know, it's, you know, I just felt like, what kind of man would I be? What kind of friend would I be? What kind of, like, you know, member of a group, you know what I mean? Like, you know, there was a lot of stuff I had to think about, you know, so, yes, sir.
How would you come to that?
How did we?
Would it be a compromise from you or a compromise from him?
It's a combination of both a lot of times. Sometimes it would just, you know, that's the thing, he was quiet a lot of times. So like those arguments, those disagreements would go for hours, man. Like it might start in the car. Like we stopped the session because we were going back and forth for an hour, go eat, and then everything be cool when we're not talking about the music. Everything, you know, we're shits and giggles, you know what I mean? And then the next thing you know, we get back to what we were talking about before the session, and then it's, you know, we're arguing in the car, we get out of the car, we're in the elevator, but I really think, and then he's like, no, well, you know, and and by the time we get back to his place, either we're still talking about it or somebody taps out like, fine, you know, or like a lot of times we would scrap the song altogether, you know what I mean? Like if we couldn't come to a compromise, one person couldn't kind of fall back a little bit, then we just would lose the song, you know, so. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I had a question about maybe just your experience in what kind of music did you feel the popular culture might have harbored that wasn't in America? Because the two big ones that I hear are normally hip hop and jazz in Japan. That seem to get that like love that was there originally, but it's still there. Is there anything that you heard or kind of caught you off guard that was like an American, you know? Originally an American thing, I guess, but it was still being like, it was still there.
Yeah, you know, anytime someone catches on to something late, and I want y'all to really kind of think about this. It doesn't necessarily mean their scene is better than ours because they like a particular thing that we currently aren't rocking with. It just means that they were exposed to it a little later. So their process, you know, and this is something Jen and I talked about as well, like, you know, like if you kind of came into something on this particular era, but like let's say the music itself has changed like 3 or 4 times before it even got to you. But then when you got to it, like it was in this era where it was really good. Like, you know, that was a great time for me in terms of hip hop. Like, you know, when I'm thinking of like early Tribe Called Quest albums, a lot of the, you know, almost anything the Native Tongues were doing and so on and so forth. You know, and for a lot of people who were in that era, they were getting, some of these people, that was their first exposure to hip hop. Some, not all. And so if that's my first exposure to hip hop, it might be a couple years later before I get good enough to make it. So now when I'm coming out with it, a lot of the people in this particular scene are making this particular style of hip hop. And so now people over here who don't like the change that's currently happening in hip hop now have an alternative to gravitate to, but it's just in a different region because they're still doing what we were doing over here years before. And so this is part of the feud that like we would have sometimes. Like I felt like it was cool, but like there's some progress that I'm not opposed to. You know what I mean? Like when people talk about how bad certain, like not even, people make generalizations, when we can all agree on that. A lot of times when people say things are changing in hip hop for the worse, they make generalizations. They don't necessarily pinpoint particular artists or this, that, and the third. They rarely ever mention what the options are, the other artists who are making great music, because there are a lot who are still doing it. I think we're cool, you know what I'm saying? But there's a lot of other brothers and sisters who are making great music, you know what I mean? And it doesn't necessarily sound dated. You understand? Like it doesn't always have to sound throwback. It can be something new. It can be something different, but still hold true to some of these same things that have existed in the culture since the beginning. Yet at the same time be fresh, you know what I mean? Because that's always a major thing in hip hop, freshness, you know what I mean? Like how can I, like in order to be fresh, you kind of got to introduce something new, right? Can't just always be throwback all the time just because that's what you prefer. And so, so what I noticed, I guess, out there was they were kind of onto a sound that was already dated. And like what would happen is I'm getting burned out there, but then when I come out here trying to do my stuff, because this is before jazz hop really was even called jazz hop. Out here, a lot of people weren't gravitating to what I was doing because it sounded dated. You see what I'm saying? And so even though people who liked that sound respected it, a lot of folks were kind of hesitant to throw it in the mix. So then what ended up happening is Samurai Champloo comes along. People in the States start getting hip to joint, and now all of a sudden people are coming to me like, dude, you did stuff with this guy and blah blah blah, this, that, and the third. Like, oh my God, what's it feel like to get tapped by a legend and blah blah blah? You know what I mean? And I'm just like, you gotta remember when he hit me up, he was just joint. You know what I mean? I didn't know who Nujabes was. Nobody I knew who Nujabes was. Even in Japan, like people, he was getting respected, but he still wasn't huge. He wasn't what he is now. He wasn't what he was right before he passed. This was prior to all of that. You see what I'm saying? So it wasn't this whole nostalgia when I would reach out to people trying to get my stuff played. You see what I'm saying? It was just kind of like, here's this underground rapper whose stuff sounds like something from like 10 years ago. You know what I mean? And that's really what it was. You know what I mean? Like some people rocked with it. But I mean, a record like Home Sweet Home, which a lot of people rock to nowadays, I go to Tokyo, rock that, the whole crowd know the words. I go to Maryland, which is the song about, rock the same song, nobody's rocking with it. Now, when I perform it in Maryland, a couple people rock with it because now there's these people who got hip to Nujabes kind of late, who love his stuff. So now I can do a show and rock Home Sweet Home in my hometown, and maybe like 25 to like 40% of the crowd knows what it is, you know what I mean? But it has less to do with the fact that it's about Maryland and it's me, and more to do with the fact that technically Nujabes put it out because he didn't produce that record. You know what I mean? Motoristic did, but it came out on a project that Nujabes put out. So people automatically associated with him. So the nostalgia piece again, you know. So yeah. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Being in Japan, did you feel like that affected? Do you feel like that affected your? I mean, not even just your lyrics, but just the flow, and just that experience. I mean, did you ever travel internationally? I mean, that normally would affect somebody.
It made
Culture shock.
Yeah. It definitely helped me grow in a lot of different ways. It taught me, I definitely noticed certain differences. You know what I mean? Like in terms of my temperament and what type of person I was, and how that doesn't always rock well other places. Because when I would get, I'm a very passionate person. So if I don't agree with you on something, I don't necessarily, my first response isn't to back down. Like, I don't do that. You know what I mean? I'm a man. Therefore, and I don't mean a man as in I'm not a woman. I mean, I'm a man as in I'm an adult. I'm someone who knows what I believe in, what I agree with, what I don't agree with. And I'm not just gonna just back down just to make you comfortable, no matter where in the world I am. So that was definitely one of the things that I really noticed out there, because people were kind of getting nervous in certain situations. Like there's times where, I'm doing business with someone and a money issue comes up, and I'm asserting myself, not because I'm going to physically threaten you and I'm going to whip your ass in public if you don't pay me. That's not it. I just need you to know that, you're talking about my livelihood here. There's a million other things I could have been doing, but I chose to do this for you. So now you're not doing what you said you would do. Now we have a problem. So now we got to speak on it. And I'm not talking necessarily about Jen, I'm just speaking in general. And so, in those moments, when you go to assert yourself, how I address that issue and then how culturally they typically address that issue is very different. So it creates a certain tension or whatever, and sometimes can strain a business relationship. So that was one major thing I learned. Another thing that I have 5 sisters, and I was raised by my mom. My pops passed when I was 10. And so, like anybody or whatever that has any common sense, I have a deep respect and love for women. You know what I mean? So, and so when my, this radio host he introduced me to, she took me to lunch or whatever for us to do an interview. And I remember walking into the business, and I get up to the door and I hold the door for her. And when I hold the door for her, she stops. And I'm like, what are you doing? You can please go in. And she's like, no, please. I'm like, can you go? Please go in the door. And she's like, no, please. And I was like, my mother would kill me. Get in the damn door. You know what I'm saying? And so eventually she walks in, and I had to explain. And I remember in the interview, she brought that up to me. She was just like, how that was very different than what she was used to. How like oftentimes women in that country are treated like second-class citizens and stuff. And I told her, and I was just like, in my household, you know, women were everything. You know what I mean? Like when my mom wasn't there to do whatever for me, I was counting on my sisters. I had, you know, not all of my sisters lived with me because my family's like Black Brady Bunch. My pops had 3 kids, my mom had 3 kids, and they met each other. Difference is they made me. You know what I'm saying? And so some of my sisters were around, other sisters lived in Baltimore. And so, you know, like I counted on them for everything. You know what I mean? Like I counted on them for everything. So there's certain things I'm real sensitive about. Like when I find out, like when I see couples arguing and I see a male like being really aggressive. Like I've seen my mother literally beat in front of me by my father. You know what I mean? I've seen my sister get beat in front of me by her boyfriend at times where I was so young I couldn't really do anything physically, you know? And so I'm hypersensitive to certain things like that. You know what I mean? And so the respect piece and all of these different things that I do sometimes, and you know, I fall short like any man, you know what I mean? Any person falls short, you're not always on your game. But like, that's one of the things that when I got there was definitely a major adjustment for me, you know what I mean? Like, and it's not for nothing, even here, you know what I mean? Like, one could argue that oftentimes women are treated like citizens as well. However, you see a lot more women asserting themselves here. In certain situations, which you don't see very often out there, you know. So that's some of the cultural stuff I guess I noticed. Go ahead, brother.
I had a kind of a personal question. Given your work with June, how did you feel like when you collaborated with Cradle Orchestra? Because the sound is really similar, but it's just like I said, it just felt like you were working with June when you were working with Bill.
Gotcha. I mean, honestly, like, it's, you know, it really, I can't really explain how I felt. I can explain how I felt when I was writing the song. Like, when I got to be, I love the challenge. You know, like, I listen to a wide variety of music. But like, when we went through my phone right now, you see everything from Daft Punk to Snow Patrol to the Beatles to, like, then you might see Fonte. You're gonna see some Marcus D. You're gonna see some. You're gonna see a lot of Dilla. You'll see some Nujabes. You'll see some Ray Charles. You'll see some Miles Davis. Everything, right? And so with my music, when I write, like I like challenges. A lot of times people have this notion of what type of rapper I am, so they send me the same type of stuff like all the time. And so obviously I got to filter out a lot. Like I can't rap to every track that sounds like You Love Jen. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't. You know. So anyway. Their track in particular stood out to me. I instantly, when I heard it or whatever, I got an idea, and so I ran with it. However, it wasn't a similar experience really at all because I want to say roughly 80% or maybe higher percentage of the music I recorded with Jun, we actually recorded in the presence of one another. Most of the music I did with Jun, we were actually in the studio together. So Cradle Orchestra, I've never even met the guys, honestly. You know what I mean? Like, even when that collab happened, like, my agent I negotiated it. And so I never met the guys, never had a direct conversation with them or anything. So it was a very kind of cold process. Although, like, I do my best in the situation to still make the music as warm as possible, you know what I mean? So you can connect with it, even though there's that disconnect, so to speak, you know? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I had a question. Marcus Lee, stuff like that. I was on YouTube during the time of like where a lot of the Samurai Champloo stuff was coming out. I remember Nujabes from Hideout Productions, like back when he wasn't on Samurai Champloo, like and stuff. And I noticed when he passed, this guy named, I don't forget, Bob 42, I don't know, yeah, Bob, yeah. And when he started like posting all like similar to Nujabes cat music and Marcus Lee, you know, did a lot of remixes for Shino too. How do you feel about that? Or I've seen, I don't know if a couple, but I've seen a couple. I was like, oh, it's dope, and then like next thing you know, it's gone.
Like, how do I feel about like doing the remixes for
Yeah, how do you?
Like when I was coming up, I was listening to a lot of Substantial Nujabes' like earlier works. So I actually found out about Samurai Champloo from Nujabes' music. So one of my friends' cousins came up from Daly City in California, and he had a lot of music, and like I played the piano back then. I still do, but he knew that I liked certain type of music, like relaxed type of music, and he had some of Nujabes' stuff. He's like, yeah, you gotta check this guy out. You probably like his stuff. So he showed me some of the music, and I like instantly just gravitated towards it. And he gave me some of the files, and like a lot of them were on his iPod and on my iPod, and it started saying Samurai Champloo OST like afterwards. So I was like, you know, I had to kind of check it out. So I Googled it, and this was like around. So I finally found out what it was, and I watched like the 11th or 12th episode, and I just checked it out. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I went back and kind of watched more of the stuff. But yeah, like as far as your actual question goes, I was very much into that type of music, and I was a huge fan of all their stuff. So I knew like everybody that he was working with and things like that. And Shingo too, actually, he contacted me after I did the Love Sick Part 3 remix through Bob's channel.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so he posted a comment and said like, this is really dope. And then he actually found my YouTube channel and took the initiative to message me. And he told me he was going to be in Seattle that weekend for his girlfriend's show that she was doing in Seattle because she lived there at the time. So he asked if I wanted to link up and possibly work on a track. And you know, like I've been listening to his stuff for a long time too, so it's kind of like a big fan moment for me. But I tried to keep my fanboy tendencies in check. You know, I had to act extra cool, like extra cool. But inside, you know, I was pretty stoked about it. But yeah, he was really cool. And after that, we started working together a lot more. He came through to my studio, and we listened to like 300 different beats that I had before he found one that he like was interested in. And he actually wasn't interested in that Parallel Universe track that we did. But I had this vision of what I wanted him over. And as a producer, you have to be willing to fight for what you think will make the best record, just instead of pleasing the artist. Because, you know, I didn't want to cause any rifts between me and him and have him be like, you know, I don't want to work with you. And I don't want to do this ever again because, like, it's weird. And, like, I just, you know, I want to do this track or no tracks at all. So I politely pushed him into that track. And I was like, I really think this would be, like, a dope track. And a lot of people would like it. He's like, all right, I'll write to it. and he ended up writing the whole track there. We recorded it that day, and then went and watched the Japan versus US soccer game in the morning. So it was pretty cool.
So yeah, Thomas was just telling me that we're going to get ready to start the acts and stuff. So I just wanted to thank you guys for your questions. Obviously, we're not leaving right now, so if you got some other questions and stuff for us, you know, feel free to ask us. We have lots of merch for you guys. We have the very elusive first album that we put out, which was a challenge to get more copies, but we finally did it. No one died. That's important, though. But anyway, almost. But you know, Marcus managed. Came out unscathed, you know what I mean? All the Schrokins missed. Like 2 people got it, you know? I love saying Schrokin because everybody's like, the hell's a Schrokin? And it's always like 2 people. But yeah, man, so thank y'all. Looking forward to rocking with y'all, you know what I mean? You know, we got a cool set for y'all, so, all right, peace.
Yo, thank you very much for blessing 5 Gathering with this. Peace, we look forward to you too. We got up next. Somebody else I'm a fan of, man. He didn't know this though, but yeah, I'm a fan of you, bro. If you didn't know. Up next, we have what I like to call world famous DJ Mefta. You know what I'm saying? So y'all make some noise for Mefta, man, and see he's gonna bless us with some